Hey everyone, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could talk to your documents, books, or YouTube podcasts? Well, I've got some exciting news. Microsoft's new GraphRAG technology is here to change that. We all familiar with Retrieval Augmented Generation, but there is a big problem with this approach. Conventional RAG, while useful, often struggle to link different pieces of information together. This limitation can lead to surface-level answers that miss crucial context, nuances, and overarching themes, especially when dealing with large or intricate bodies of information. Now we have GraphRAG, created by Microsoft Research, as a significant advance in enhancing the capability of LLMs. In this video, I'll show you how to install GraphRAG and how to use it. To be honest, you won't believe what this tech can do. So first, let's understand what is RAG and how RAG works. Well, just imagine you're having a conversation with an AI. But instead of just relying on what it learned during training, it can actually reach out and grab new information to help answer your questions. Retrieval Augmented Generation works by combining two key processes, retrieval and generation. First, we create a massive digital library. This can include anything from company reports to the latest news articles. We convert all this info into a format that our AI can understand. Think of it as creating a giant, smart index. When someone asks a query, it searches through a large vector database of information to find relevant text chunks based on the user's query. Then, it feeds these retrieved chunks into a language model as additional context. The model uses this context along with the original query to generate a response, effectively augmenting its knowledge with specific, relevant information from the database. In a simpler word, RAG just extend already powerful large language model capabilities. Baseline RAG is kind of like that friend who's great at memorizing facts, but struggles to put two and two together. It's got all this info, but when you ask it to connect the dots, it's just not that good. Then there's the whole big picture problem. You know how sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees? That's baseline RAG trying to understand a huge document or dataset. It gets lost in the details and misses the main plot. Now here's where it gets a bit techie. GraphRAG employs a knowledge graph structure. This allows for improved connectivity between disparate pieces of information, potentially leading to more nuanced responses. Secondly, GraphRAG utilizes a clustering mechanism to organize data hierarchically. This can facilitate a more holistic view of large datasets, which is particularly useful for identifying overarching themes or patterns. But remember, the efficacy of this clustering is heavily dependent on the quality and diversity of the input data. The system's retrieval process is enhanced by leveraging the knowledge graph, potentially resulting in more contextually relevant information being accessed. One noteworthy feature is GraphRAG's ability to provide provenance for its responses. This transparency is commendable from an academic standpoint, as it allows for verification and further investigation. By the end of this guide, you'll learn how to implement GraphRAG in your application to extract entities and get high-quality answers. Thankfully, Microsoft has open-sourced GraphRAG, making it easy to integrate this advanced RAG system into your application. First, you need to install the GraphRAG package using pip. Open your terminal and run the following command: pip install GraphRAG. This command installs the package, which includes all the necessary dependencies. Next, you need to set up your environment by exporting your OpenAI API key. This is required for GraphRAG to interact with the OpenAI models. Run the following command in your terminal: export GraphRAG API key, then your private API key. For Windows user, you need use set command instead of export. This step ensures that the GraphRAG can authenticate and use the OpenAI services. You need to create a folder to store your input data. You can do this directly in the terminal, mkdir input. Alternatively, you can create the folder using a file explorer or within an integrated development environment, IDE like VS Code. Place your data in a text file inside the input folder. For instance, create a file named whatever you want, but for this demo I'm going to name as transcript.txt and add your content to it. Here's an example of what it might look like. I created a text file, Dr. Andrew Huberman, podcast transcription, this podcast about smartphone and mental health. You can use any text data relevant to your application. Now, you need to initialize the GraphRAG project in the directory where you have the input folder. Run the following command in your terminal: python-m graphrag index --init--root. This command initializes the project and sets up the necessary folder structure and configuration files in the current directory. If you are using a different directory, replace dot with the path to your directory. After initialization, you will have a setting.yaml file in your project directory. Open this file to configure various settings like model names, embedding models, chunk sizes, and input folders. Here's an example configuration: model name GPT-4, embedding model text embedding ADA02, chunk size 300, input folder input, output folder output. Make sure to set the parameters according to your requirements. You can also modify other settings like the API base URL to integrate different large language models. With your settings configured, you can now index your document. Run the following command: python-m graphrag index --root. This command processes your data, dividing it into chunks and extracting entities, creating a structured knowledge graph. Once the indexing is complete, you can query the indexed data. For global search, run python-m graphrag.query root method global. For local search, use local method. These commands allow you to ask questions and retrieve context-aware answers based on the indexed data. Now that your data is indexed and ready, you can ask questions to get detailed answers. For example, you can ask, "Who is the guest in this podcast?" and tell me smartphone about smartphone addiction. Discuss this podcast. You will receive a comprehensive answer enhanced by the context provided through GraphRAG. By following these detailed steps, you can successfully install and set up GraphRAG in your application. This setup will allow you to leverage advanced Retrieval Augmented Generation techniques to enhance the quality and accuracy of your responses. If you found this video helpful, please give a like and don't forget to subscribe this channel for more AI content.